TRW, Crusades 2. Crusades 2, the battles from the 12th to the 15th centuries. And this is the Battle of Hob. Right here, the Battle of Hob. Basically an army, Crusader army under Baldwin against a Turk army under Ilghazi. Oh wait, I thought about the Berserk levels. That's actually an advanced rule. Which actually I'm a little bit more motivated to get to the advanced rules. I've never really considered them. Yeah, I'll take a look at those at some other time. Okay, there's actually a lot that could be said at this point, but I am mostly interested in moving on to play here. Okay, so this, again, I'll hold up the rules here. In a relative sense, and only in a relative sense, and I say this with great reluctance, this game, and I've just started here, seems a little more polished, a little more complete, a little more playable than some others in the family, in the Royalist and Roundheads family of games. And that's a good thing. It's a very good thing. But I was thinking about this. I was thinking about the battle here. I was thinking about the game Crusades 2. So the scenario Hob and this particular game in the family Crusades 2. And I was thinking, it's what's going on here is you have a simple military system against one that has some complexity. Now, this has nothing to do with simple being either better or worse. This has nothing to do with any type of value judgment at all. What it has to do with is the fact that the entire one side in the battle, in this case the entire Turkish army here, is made up of only two types of units, and one of them really predominates, right? You have a large majority that are these mounted bowmen right there, and then you have a minority that are these cavalry. Call them regular cavalry, or so that's what I mean by a relatively simple system. And then on the Crusader side, you have a bit more. You have foot bowmen. You have Crusader. Yeah, you have mounted heavy Crusader cavalry, and you have men at arms. And more balanced. You have, yeah, and the balance is, I think, a little bit more than just that makes it appear, because the heavy Crusader cavalry, in game terms, they have the charge, and then they have basically a double attack, a breakthrough attack, momentum type attacks. So I think that kind of makes them like two kinds of unit in one, so to speak. So that's what you have here. This competition between these two different kinds of military systems. It's interesting. it's very different than like the Royalists and Roundheads games for the English Civil War. Yeah, so I think that's where the interest is developing, at least for now here. Okay, so it is the it's still the 0800 turn. It's just the Crusader, or the second player or Crusader side. I already went through the movement phase. I'll just comment on it real quickly. So for the Crusaders, first I check for units being out of. There are 2 steps. Also, something I'm skipping over is I definitely feel like I lost my groove here, but I'm still going to try to get it back. I'm still talking about how the game plays. I'm still focusing on the mechanics, the design. Okay, so again, second player movement phase has 2 basic steps. One is checking for units out of command, and second is your actual movement per formation commands. Okay, so first, out of command. Now, this formation is coherent, and this one is the same, and this one's the same. Really, only Baldwin is spread out here in the center. So at first I thought, well, certainly these guys, this heavy Crusader cavalry unit, this heavy Crusader cavalry unit, certainly I need to look for them to be out of command. But actually Baldwin has a really impressive 7 command span of 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which actually, and I want to let's talk about this now, how you trace that command span. Obviously that's important, and so each leader has a command span rating. It's the center of the leader's counter, 7 in Baldwin's case. The rating indicates the number of hexes from a leader that a combat unit can be and still be in command. When tracing, count the hex of the combat unit but not the hex of the leader. So basically you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Trace from leader. Okay, enemy zones of control block command span unless occupied by a friendly combat unit. And then obviously hex is occupied by combat units blocked. So you do have to trace, you have to trace command span around enemy units and around, unnegated or uncountered enemy zones of control. So just for example, so this unit has a zone of control, which, just to review, units do not have 6 adjacent hexes as their zone of controls. It's only front and flank. So for example, this Turkish cavalry unit, 2 front hexes are also zone of control, 2 flank hexes also zone of control, but 2 rear hexes are not zone of control. But Baldwin could trace 1, 2, 3, 4, which is in the enemy zone of control, but it's occupied by a unit, and then go 5, 6, 7. So a little bit there. Everybody is in command. And then movement. Basically, I look at this unit back here. This is Antiochene. I figured I want to keep him back as a reserve. I want to see what's going to happen here. No idea what's going to happen, where the Turkish cavalry army is going to break through. So I'm going to keep him back as a reserve. By the way, they all, to review, have stand orders. They need to change these, or I need to look at changing these at the first opportunity. But they all have stand orders. So in any case, when it comes to movement, we're only talking about, are they going to move 1 hex? Because that's a stand order. That's a limitation of a stand order. Actually, that does not count for the routed unit. Routed units don't follow command shits. So then I thought, well, do I want to move anybody else here? And I decided against it, mainly because everybody is more or less where I want them, right? I'm going to hold here. I know the Turkish cavalry are coming for this formation. Same over here. These 5 men-at-arms units, they basically they need to hold. They need to hold in the center. Men-at-arms, yeah. They need to hold in the center. Which means basically I'm looking for an opportunity to, well, let me say first off, I'm looking for an opportunity to charge with my heavy cavalry. But you can't charge if you do not have, you have to have an attack command. How do they express that? How do they, I'm trying to remember, 5.6, there it is, Crusader Heavy Cavalry. So unlike other combat units, Crusader Heavy Cavalry units do not have a reduced strength side. Instead, they have a non-charging and a charging side. So when they are subject to an attack command, they may be flipped to that. So basically, I need to change to an attack command first before I can try the charge. And the charge is then going to be going to do a morale check anyways, so it's hardly automatic, but it's not even an option unless I get into an attack command. Okay, so that is movement. Then then we went on to the second player, Crusader combat phase, which is broken up into a fire and a melee sub phase. And I should point out, it's real unfortunate that, and I've mentioned this probably a long time ago, that they should have had an actual skirmisher phase because where is it? There it is, because skirmisher units may always retreat up to 3 hexes from an enemy infantry unit zone of control before the combat phase begins. That is before the start of the fire combat, and therefore before they themselves can fire. So this is very easy to forget. For example, in a game like this, I might fire with my the opposing player might do defensive fire before they realize they actually wanted to withdraw. Yeah, I didn't explain that well, but since it's not a distinct phase step or anything, since it's not even mentioned in the sequence of play, it's something that needs to be remembered. Yeah, okay, so then there's fire subphase, what I call a fire combat subphase, and a melee combat subphase. So for the melee, or the fire combat subphase, basically defensive fire, offensive fire, I actually went through and did all the defensive fire for all of these mounted bowmen on the Turkish side. No effects. I mean, I think there were a couple of morale checks that the units passed. Yeah, I think there were a couple of morale checks that they passed. Then, oh no, that's where I'm picking up. Now we go to offensive fire. So that we only have the four good order. We only have the 4 foot bowmen there in the center. So again, since I feel like I'm not describing things as well as I would like, I guess. This is how you do fire. It is by individual unit. I guess that's something to say up front. There is no combining of fire here. I still haven't made up my mind what I think about that. Maybe I'll never have an opinion. Maybe it's as simple as that. Maybe I'll just never have an opinion. But it is by individual fire. So combat units with an asterisk. So I'm going to start, since we only have the fire in the center, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in and we'll talk about fire combat a bit more. Okay, and to be technical, I'll even how to put it. I don't believe, well, it's not specified, and so I also don't believe that it's intended that you have to declare all your fire. The only thing it says is that you do have to resolve all fire into one hex before you move on to another. So for example, and also you don't have to pre-declare even against the hex. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire with this guy first. And then I can see what's going to happen before I decide what to do next, because this guy could also fire into that hex, or this unit could fire over here. But once this fires over here, I'm done with this hex, if there were another firer who could fire into it. Okay, so all fire combat in a single target hex must be resolved before resolving fire combat in another hex. Okay. Let's see. So the range table, here's the range table. So the range table lists ranges for different types of combat units firing. We have a bow, just normal bow unit. When firing, players cross-index the type of firing unit with the distance and hexes to the target. Now, he is firing here, so it's a range of 1. Cross-index, I get a modifier +1. This number is added to the die roll on the fire table. There are no modifiers to this table at all. This just is getting your 1, is it a legal fire attack? That is it in range? And 2, what if any modifier is there for range? It's going to apply to the combat. When calculating this distance, count the target hex but not the firing unit's hex. Alright, we know that. Alright. Line of sight is no line of sight issues here. As with most war games, adjacent is no line of sight issue. Okay, that's funny. They don't actually have a fire. They don't actually explain the fire combat procedure, but it's clear enough. So over here, so there are only 2 fire table modifiers. For Crusader Heavy Cavalry Men at Arms. Range modifier, we do have the +1 from the range table. There are no terrain modifiers that apply here. So I'm going to look for my type of unit firing. There's the bow unit. I'm going to roll a 10-sided die, and it's going to get really all wobbly on the screen. And I'm going to roll a 7, which is +1 for 8. And so I go on the bow column down to 8, and I have a morale check. That's the result. So the target, the Turkish cavalry unit there, has a morale of 8. That's actually pretty darn good. And he rolls a 5 and he's fine. Rolls a 5 and he's fine. So that is fire combat. Now I can go, since I just talked that all through. This is the exact same attack with the guy adjacent. 6 and 7. 6 +1 is 7, which is also a morale check. And he passes again. Passes again with a 6. But 8 is that's a high morale. So not too surprising there. Actually I can just continue here. Fire out of the front fire through the frontal hex sides. So this unit is actually going, let's see, he's actually going to fire on, the missile unit. It seems like maybe a good rule to follow, and by rule I don't mean game rule, but kind of a tactic or something, is to take care of that enemy ranged force first. Take care of the enemy that can hit you by range. So this is going to be a range of 2, which is going to be no modifier from the range table. So this is just going to be flat or straight on that bow column. Oh, they roll a 2. That's unfortunate. So this guy is going to fire at the same guy right there. 4. That's too bad. All right. So that is our ranged combat.